everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about being equity dep, what it is, what it entails, what your responsibilities are, how you become one, all of that good stuff. Gonna try and keep it succinct because I know I can waffle, but this one should be, hopefully, a short little one. Yeah. Hopefully I won't ramble. We'll see how it goes. Editing me, I love you. Just for context of how I have the authority to talk about this, not only have I been in productions where there has been an equity dep, but I also have been an equity dep in the past, and I also did the equity dep training that equity provides. So whilst I'm no expert by any means, I have done it before, and this video is not going to be going into my personal experience of being an equity dep or things that have come up when I've been in shows where there have been equity deps. It's just going to be kind of a more introductory informational video so that if you are in the UK specifically and you've heard the term equity dep but you don't know what it is, or you've been in a company where they've asked about equity deps and it's something that you might be interested in doing but you just want a bit of an introduction to what it is, you're feeling a bit nervous, hopefully this will be helpful to you. If you're not in the UK, you may have similar things in your acting industries like equity dep, but obviously I can't speak to that because I'm not in the US or Canada or Australia or wherever else. If you just want to have some like general information, this might have some things that are applicable, but definitely talk to your own actors union to see what's what, because I don't know. I don't live in your country. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. I don't know why I always do like the thumbs up with the tongue click thing. I don't know, it's fun. It's fun. So, what is an equity dep? Equity dep is short for equity deputy, and it is a member of the acting company or stage management company who acts as a representative between the company and company management and equity. If the company has a grievance or someone in the company has a grievance and wishes to remain anonymous, you can speak on their behalf either to management or to equity if there's a query or something you need to clarify, so that not one person in the company feels singled out. And because you're equity dep, it shouldn't happen. I've never heard of it happening personally, but like the management can't put all the blame on you because you are representing either the company as a whole or someone in the company. So it provides some protection if there are issues that need to be raised with company management. Now I've said company management, I'm like, oh, but I don't mean the company manager. Let's define who like the other people in this bubble of work stuff is. You are the equity dep. You represent the acting company and the stage management. So acting company is obviously the actors. This also would include any understudies, any swings, things like that. Stage management includes the assistant stage manager, the deputy stage manager, the stage manager, if the stage manager is separate from the company manager. Sometimes those two roles are combined. And also technically the company manager. We'll get onto the company manager in the sec because the company manager is kind of a grey area. The management is primarily the producers. So the producers of whoever, the people paying you. But depending on the stage in a production or in a job that you're at, it can also include the creative team. So the director, if there's a musical director, things like that. Let's get back to the company manager because the company manager straddles kind of both. They are technically a member of the stage management team often. So if the company manager has a grievance with management, the producers, the director, etc., they can come to you and you can represent them. But also they are kind of in management because in the hierarchy of a company, they are the employed go-between between the company and management. And also they hold a lot of power. So you can, it's not happened to me, to my knowledge, in productions I've been, and it didn't happen when I was equity deputy, but I have heard of instances where, you know, because the company manager has so much power, they can be the cause of grievances within the company that the equity debt has to deal with, or they can help facilitate grievances that are happening with management by not reporting things. Actually, no, that did happen in a show I was in. But anyway, if they've done something wrong that has maybe put the company in danger, but they've not show reported it, things like that. So the company manager, you technically represent them, but there might be instances where you want to deal with things without them present. We'll get onto that a little bit later.
Hi, it's editing me. I didn't get into it later on in the video, so I'm gonna jump in and get into it now. As I explain later, one of the things you'd do as an equity dep is do things like call meetings. You'd also typically set up a WhatsApp group for anyone to like message any grievances or any issues, and it's all in one place. So what you would do in terms of if the company manager either is causing an issue or you just want to create a space where any issues that haven't been brought to your attention can be raised, is you can either call separate equity meetings. So you'd have one equity meeting where the company manager would be present and you call a separate meeting where they wouldn't be present, or you can call a meeting where they are present and then partway through ask them to leave so that anyone can bring up any issues that they may have with them without fear. The other thing you could do is set up a separate WhatsApp group. So you'd have one WhatsApp group where the company manager is in that group, and then you'd have a second WhatsApp group where the company manager isn't in that WhatsApp group. So that would be the way you would navigate that. And depending on what kind of equity dep you want it to be, you could either kind of put those things in place from the beginning to be like, just so you know, I'm going to have two groups, one with you and one without you. And whenever we have a meeting, towards the end of the meeting, I will be asking you to leave so anyone can say anything else that they would like to say without you present. Or you can put those things in place if and when it comes to your attention that there is an issue with the company manager that needs raising. That's kind of up to you what you want to do, but yeah, that's kind of how you would navigate it. Back to the video.
When I say talk to equity, your point of contact will be your equity official. So the equity official is employed by the union. They're a unionist. They are not a person who works in theatre professionally, like an actor or whatever. Their job is to do union things. That is what they are paid and employed to do full time. In the UK, you have different equity officials for different regions in the country, and also things that aren't as regional. So there's, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that there's an equity dep for the West End. So all of the West End productions, they have one equity official. And the large #1 tours that aren't coming out of a producing venue, so you're looking kind of at commercial musical tours, they have a separate equity official. And they're the person who knows all of the stuff, or can easily get to all of the stuff. So they know the ins and outs of all the equity contracts. They also know about general employment law, which we'll get onto in a second. They know the venues that they have kind of jurisdiction over. So they know the management of all the different venues. They know the producers who are producing all of the different shows. They're well aware of any previous kind of systemic issues that might be happening in a venue in their jurisdiction, or with a producer that's within their jurisdiction. If there's anything that's outside of your remit as an equity dep, for example, legal questions, we'll get onto that in a second, they're the person you go to. If you need any clarification on your rights, anything that is kind of above your area of knowledge and expertise, your equity official is the person that you go to. So what are your responsibilities as an equity dep? You are responsible for representing, like I said, the acting company and the stage management within a production. You are not responsible for any extra work that either management or the company might want to put on you as equity dep, in terms of, for example, when you tell the company manager, hi, I'm going to be the equity dep, they can't then go to you and say, oh great, well we're changing the rehearsal schedule, so can you let everyone know? That is not your job, that is the company manager's job. They can't put that on you just because you've said you're equity dep. You're not responsible for giving any legal advice. You are not a lawyer. Don't give people legal advice. If people have legal questions about their contract, etc., they should be going to the equity official. And you can do that for them. If someone comes to you to say, I have this issue with my contract, you can say, you talk to your agent, I will forward your question on to the equity official and ask them. You can point people in the right direction in terms of, for example, all of the equity contracts are on the equity website. So you can quote from there. I did that when I was equity dep. We weren't on equity contracts, but we had some things come up where I compared what was in, well, we all had different contracts. So I just used my contract as the example and then found the corresponding clause to the relevant equity contract. So like I quoted between them, be like, the equity contract says this, my contract at least says this, I'm asking our equity official for their input and advice. So like you can directly quote things you have access to, but you can't tell someone you should do this if it has any legal implication, ramification, etc. Just take it to equity. They have lawyers and legal advisors. You're not responsible for anyone else in the company that is also comes under the equity union. So if directors or designers have any grievances, they need to go to equity separately because they kind of come under management because they're part of the creative team. But you are responsible for offering common sense advice, pointing people in the right direction and helping facilitate that, and essentially representing the people that you are responsible of representing, so that if anyone comes to you with an issue, with a question, with a grievance, and for whatever reason they don't want to go to management or equity themselves, you can represent them and speak on their behalf to help maintain their anonymity. And you can do that with yourself as well. If you have a grievance but you want to remain anonymous, you don't have to say, I think this. You can be like, hi, I'm equity dep, there's a member of the company who's having this issue. Like, even though you're the face representing the whole company, you can still protect your own anonymity because you can say a member of the company. You don't have to say that it's you. So yeah, it's quite useful, especially if, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if like serious problems come up that need to be addressed or that you feel need to be addressed, it's just a useful way of protecting the company members who are affected by those things, if that makes sense. So how do you become an equity dep? And side question, what kind of jobs can have an equity dep? So let's actually start with the side question first. If you are employed as an actor or a stage manager on any kind of work where you are specifically, you are acting or you are stage managing, you can have an equity dep. It doesn't have to be an equity contract. It doesn't have to be a traditional theatre job. There have been instances where equity has helped actors and stage managers working on things like immersive experiences, where it's not like a show, it's like you are performing a character in a immersive experience or at a theme park or something like that. If you are an actor or if you are a stage manager and there are issues and you're like, I think we need an equity dep and we might need to liaise with equity on this, you can have an equity dep. Also, if you do have an equity dep, equity can still help you if you're not on an equity contract, if you're not on a traditional kind of show, and if not everyone in the company are members. There was a time when, I think this was like decades ago, that older actors have told me about, where equity would not help if it wasn't an equity contract or it wasn't involving people who were members of the union. I think this is the thing that might be very, very different in other countries where there's more of an emphasis on things having to be equity contracts and having to hire equity members or union members before anyone else, for example. In the industry here, there's so much work that is non-equity contracts, and also there are so many actors who aren't equity members that I think our union is like, if we don't help people, we're not going to get members. So it's in our interest to help as much as we can, even if it's not an equity contract, or even if the majority of people in this situation aren't union members. Having said that, if you are in one of those jobs and you can encourage people to become equity members, equity has more power if it goes to an employer and saying, you're employing members of our union and X, Y, and Z is wrong. It does help strengthen equity's bargaining power with management, but that's not to say that they can't or won't help if that is not the case. So with that out of the way, how do you become an equity dep? If you are on an equity contract, you will have a meeting with the equity official that would be in charge of the production of that contract. So if you're starting a job on a musical tour, the equity official for touring would have a meeting with your company. If you're starting rehearsals in a specific venue in the regions, the regional equity official for that venue will come and have a meeting with you, and they will talk to you about what equity is, what it's about, what being an equity dep is, encouraging you to vote one in as soon as possible and to let them know. If you are not on an equity contract, you may not have that meeting. The job where I was equity dep, we weren't on equity contracts, but we did have a meeting because the venue was open and working towards going on to equity contracts for their productions. So we did have one, but usually if you're not on an equity contract, there won't be a meeting with the equity official. But after that point, after you've had that meeting or not, basically what happens is a vote. You can either nominate yourself and say, I would like to be equity dep, or I think it would be useful to have an equity dep on this production and I don't mind doing it. Or someone can nominate you. So someone might say, I think you'd be a really good equity dep. I think you should do it. Or I think we should have an equity dep, but I'm too scared to do it. I think you'd be really good. Or I heard you saying you'd done it before. Could you do it again? And then the rest of the company votes, especially if there's multiple people who are interested, which usually doesn't happen. The company will vote to say yes. Even if there's only one person, the company would probably still vote to be like, yeah, you can be our equity dep. And literally that's it. And the voting process is literally just hands up. Like everyone's there, hands up. Are you all right with this person being equity dep? Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's literally how it works. And most of the time, if you're in a situation where you're like, I want to be equity dep, or I think it'd be useful to have equity dep, no one's probably going to contest that. So it's really chill. And then once you are confirmed as equity dep, once you're voted in by the rest of the company, you get in touch with your equity official. Obviously, if you had a meeting with them, they will leave their contact details. But if you don't know who that is, just get in contact with equity and just explain, hi, I'm on this production. I am the equity dep for this company. This is the production. This is where it is, blah, blah, blah. Could you please let me know who our equity official would be so I can get in touch with them? And then they'll be like, it's this person. And then you're like, hi, I'm the equity dep for this. And they'll be like, great. And then the other person that you need to tell is the company manager, because obviously if there are any issues, your first port of call as equity dep is probably going to be the company manager, if not the rest of the company management team, producers, etc. But definitely for like a bigger show, it'll be the company manager that you're speaking to relay that information. That's it. Then you just kind of wait until there's a problem. Maybe every so often on longer contracts, just have an equity meeting to be like, hi guys, is everything okay? Has anyone got anything that's come up? You know, keep an eye out for anything that could be potential problems so you can monitor them. Like, you obviously just don't want to be completely oblivious to everything that's going on in the company, or just like blindly ignoring things until someone else brings it up. Like, be vigilant so that you can nip things in the bud if they come up, but essentially you're there if you're needed, and if you're not needed, great. If you are, then fine. So yeah, that's how you become equity dep, at least in the UK. Finally, what makes a good equity dep? If you're thinking, oh, I might want to do this in the future, or oh, this sounds interesting, is this something that I could do? What skills are useful to have? Now, obviously not everyone is perfect. You don't have to be like, I have all of these skills, only then can I be equity dep. But kind of, in my opinion, as someone who's done it, and the things that really stood out for me that I thought were useful skills I had whilst being equity dep. This is kind of a little smorgasbord of like some of the things that make a good equity dep. Number one is common sense. To be honest, most of the job is common sense. If someone comes to you with a problem, if you have the common sense and knowledge to feel like you can give advice, not legal advice, but just general advice, then feel free to give it. If you don't know, then you're going to your equity official and asking them. The second big one is communication. You need to be a good communicator because there are just so many different people that you're going to be communicating with. You're communicating with the equity official. You need to be really clear in your communication with the equity official what the situation is that you're asking their advice of, because the equity official isn't there. So you have to be really clear with them so that they can give you accurate advice. You're obviously communicating with your company, the people you're representing, and also communicating outcomes of things that you're looking into for them so that people know what's going on who are affected by this query. And then also you've got to communicate with management. And so not only does your communication have to be clear, but it also has to be professional, because as a representative of the company, yeah, obviously they can't go, oh, Michaela, for example, is causing this problem because she's complaining about this thing, because they don't know who's complaining about XYZ thing. You're just communicating it. But if you're rude in that communication, that's still going to reflect badly on you. So you have to be able to communicate in a way that's professional, that's clear, that's succinct, because everyone is busy. So yeah, good communication skills, I would say, is like key as an equity dep. Number three of what makes a good equity dep, being a good listener. You have to do a lot of listening. And not only being a good listener, but being very good at like comprehension in terms of hearing what people are saying or hearing what's being said in a written correspondence, and really being able to comprehend what is being said, especially if you've asked a complex question and you've got a lengthy, complex answer, being able to break that information down to its constituent parts. Number four, I think I'm on the fourth thing that makes a good equity dep. We'll say I'm on number four, is being a good leader. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't to say that you have to be the white knight and going in to fix everyone's problems, because your job is not to fix everyone's problems. Making decisions for other people and being like, we're doing this, guys, let's go, let's ride at dawn. But you have to be prepared to make decisive decisions, for one, in terms of if someone comes to you with a grievance, you can't be like, oh, well, I don't really know. Oh, it's probably a bit complicated and I don't know what to do. You have to be like, okay, you've told me this thing. Even if it's like, that's really difficult and I'm not sure how I can help with that, let me talk to the equity official to see if there's anything that can be done. Or let me talk to company management to see if there's anything that company management can do to help this situation. Leadership in terms of decisiveness. Also, you have to be willing to, do things like call equity meetings if equity meetings are called for, or if you're in a longer contract, just like at regular intervals so that people can stay in the loop. And also to lead those meetings. You're the equity dep, so you can't just be like, guys, let's have an equity meeting, and then just be like, okay, so what are we doing? Like, hi, how's everyone? It's like, no, it's like calling the equity meeting, just checking that everyone is okay. Are there any issues that have come up since our last equity meeting that I haven't been made aware of? Yes, no, maybe so. Any grievances that have happened in the past? Here's an update for those of you who aren't aware or just want a refresher, because hopefully you've let people know as solutions have been found. But just in case something's ongoing, like this ongoing issue, here's where we're at with it. I'm currently talking to this person or that person or the other person. Like, you have to be willing to run that space and to lead that space. And that's not to say you have to be like a big extroverted character. You just have to be strong in your convictions and clearly communicate what you're doing. And then I guess the fifth, are we on five? The last like big quality that I think makes a good equity dep, and there are more than the ones that I've said, but just for me personally, is patience. You can only meet people where they're at. If people don't want to fight that corner and it's an issue that only affects them and no one else in the company, you can't go against their wishes. When you have strong feelings, that can be hard, but that's your job as the equity dep. You're representing your company members. You're not doing what you think is right. Like I said before, you're not like a white knight just charging in. Similarly, another area where patience is really useful is the fact that like you might have legitimate grievances and they can't be fixed, and that can be a pain. But yeah, you just have to have patience with that. And I guess kind of side thing to that is kind of discernment when it's coming to those kinds of things, especially if there's multiple different things. And this is a skill that kind of in hindsight, I think I could have been a bit better at. I don't think I was terrible at it, but I think maybe knowing what I know now, I think I have a better understanding of how different contracts work to be able to do this better. But discerning what battles are actually worth fighting, you know, having the discernment and the patience to know which battles you can fight and which not. And like, even when an inquiry is asked, when you get an answer, it's like, is this an answer that we can fight on and that we can push, or is this just something that for the minute we have to accept, but you know, can we look at changing it in the future if it's a long enough contract, or can we just, you know, make it known how not okay this is, so that it changes in the future for a future company. And in the job where I was equity dep, one of the things our equity official said was that a lot of things will have changed for the better for future companies because of the things we brought up as a company ourselves. Issues with pay and how pay was done, the fact that we needed to invoice when you shouldn't have to invoice for theatre contracts. Well, our agents had to invoice. The fact that we weren't given our travel up front to pay our tickets. We had to pay for our travel and then get reimbursed, which is not how things are done. Discrepancies in who was getting provided accommodation and who was getting touring allowance. Well, it was touring allowance, and how that was weird. There was so much stuff that we brought up that hopefully now will be changed for the better for future companies that work at that venue and in that venue's productions. So yeah, I think being able to discern what is a fight worth fighting and what is a fight to just kind of log your objection for another day, having the patience when things don't go the way that you want them to go or how company members want them to go, because company members could also be disappointed because they think they're entitled to something where actually if you look at the contracts they're not. Yeah, having the patience when things don't go your way. And there was a third thing I was going to say as well. Discernment, patience. Let's just stick with discernment and patience. I can't remember the third thing. So yeah, so that was my video with my advice on being an equity dep. If you would like a follow-up that's more of my kind of personal experience of being equity dep / in situations where an equity dep would have been good or equity deps weren't effectual, then let me know and I will have a think about whether I can put any of that on the internet. This is where a Patreon would come in handy or something, because then I could do like private videos. But yeah, if you're interested, let me know, and if I can make it work, bearing in mind I don't want to like make it impossible for me to work in this industry again, then I may make that, I may not, but like, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I would love to have you on the channel. Come on down and stay tuned for more theatre content from a UK perspective, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye friends!